This week's podcast is sponsored by our friends at Yamaha. Transform the way you watch TV and elevate your home cinema experience with the MusicCast Bar 400. Supporting the latest 4K Ultra HD TVs, the MusicCast Bar 400 with wireless subwoofer features DTS Virtual X Surround along with Bluetooth, HDMI, as well as built-in music streaming services and MusicCast. Visit YamahaMusicLondon.com for more details. Hello and welcome to the AVForums Podcast for Monday the 9th of March 2020, and joining me in this edition, Steve Withers.
Shall I cough on you?
Kaz Harlow.
You have to love its simplicity. It's 1/1000th our size and it's beating us.
And Ed Selley.
We're fugitives of the law. Idiocy is our only option.
And the world just goes even madder than it was last week when it comes to coronavirus. I blame the media and social media. It's just...
Mostly blame social media rather than the media.
Well, I don't know. I think the BBC are milking it for all it's worth at the minute, if you ask me. I mean, I can't remember anybody panic buying until the news started talking about panic buying, and then it just seems to kick everything off.
I blame Australia.
Silly. Do you?
Well, people watching the Australians and going, well, that looks fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are they buying toilet paper?
I don't know.
I think it's a flu virus. You're not going to shit yourself. You're going to cough.
So I think it started there, and then because you can buy toilet paper. It looks from the photos, you can buy toilet paper by like the 1,000 in Australia.
I don't think people intentionally. Didn't someone accidentally buy like 2,000 rolls of toilet paper?
I don't think so. I think they did it on purpose.
Oh, cornering the market and then selling it off to other people when they need a poo.
But I guess if you put that on social media, 99 out of 100 people are going to go, hey, that's hilarious. And then one is going to go, I guess I need toilet paper. And then it's going to fizzle down like that. People are going to be buying toilet paper and other people are going to see them buying toilet paper. And all of a sudden, I mean, it's absolutely right. Waitrose yesterday, no toilet paper.
Yeah, but there was an Aldi and Lidl.
The argument goes, the most cogent argument I've seen to this is that instead of a box of tissues, it's a very man-portable method of carrying around a lot of snot catching. I don't think it's an actual fear, or at least didn't start as an actual fear of pooing yourself to death.
Sure.
Whether it's sort of accelerated beyond that point is hard to say. I mean, I say this from a position of, I don't know what anyone else's inventory is, but it's just me in the house. I've got 11 rolls, which I think
I'm
should
down
probably
to my
be...
last one.
Ooh, there's a man flirting.
Playing
with
fate there, I think. Although I could always just go and buy a Sun newspaper and use that.
Yeah, it's hard to flush. Very hard to flush. I may have learned that as a student. I
had a friend who once had to use wrapping paper in a desperate need during a moment of crisis, which was very, very rough on the bottom.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not unduly concerned. If we're going to be base about this, I have a single toilet in my house. It is next to my shower. So there are
Indian Asian method of
there are expedient methods of keeping my ring piece clean. So
cutting edge is always on the AVForums podcast. What can I say?
This is life advice. I will say I'm honest enough to admit I did a shop on Monday and I bought some extra tins of tomatoes and some other things where if this all comes to nothing, I will get through all of the tins of tomatoes. I've used them in so many different things and so on and so forth. But if I absolutely needed to, at this point, I wouldn't need to go anywhere near a supermarket for a fortnight, probably nearer 3 weeks, actually, when I think about it. So, yeah.
I also like the buying up of all of the antibacterial hand gel.
To deal with a virus.
Yeah.
It's soap and water.
Yes, absolutely. But I quite like the antibacterial. I mean, it couldn't be any more obvious from the title, but yes.
I'm going for the alcohol method, but I'm ingesting it and then assuming that I exude
so
it.
If your body's alcohol level is at a certain point, you don't catch it. Yeah. They do say you should keep drinking during the day, and drinking often, little and often, because if the virus does enter, you can, if you flush it into the stomach, it kills it seemingly. So you should drink plenty of fluids as well. Is the advice.
There we go.
You know what? I don't care. If it gets me, it gets me. Really, it's people that are
as long as you can do about it.
No, there's a sense of fatalism that's always healthy. I would also say that my efforts at stockpiling are just achingly middle class. I've got obviously lots of tins of
I saw you
tomatoes.
on your mushrooms.
Got six packs of dried porcini mushrooms, because
It's
I'm-
middle class.
it's a go-to an apocalyptic situation. So
I think this whole crisis has definitely shown how unbelievably stupid most people actually are, though. People who have to.
What, did
someone has to ask
Brexit not
questions-
tell you that?
Well, yeah, but when people start questions like, do I need to wash my mouth out with bleach? You're like, yeah. I think you should start drinking the bleach. It'll kill you off, so you can't procreate, so that our species can evolve and get the hell off this planet before we destroy it. So yeah, people are thick. We've got Trump supporters going. There's all a Democrat
Oh, that's
conspiracy and
fantastic.
hoax.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I really hope you catch it and die then.
but good news, obviously, the Pope has changed his schedule. So he
he's podcasting it, isn't he?
I mean, you would have thought that if there was anyone that had some sort of faith that they wouldn't catch it, it would probably.
Yeah, I mean, God's,
okay.
it's God's messenger. He should be fine.
Well, yeah. It's funny how it all pans out, isn't it?
I'm just going to say, Dave Stevens @_DTS man on Twitter, you posted today that when you record the podcast, Just Talk, it's so much better listening to Phil, Ed and Steve just chat, so much better than hearing about 0.000012 delta E reading off a goddamn TV. I'm not sure a lot of people would agree with that, but we'll try.
I don't know. I think I would actually. So his name's Dave Stevens. So his middle name begins with a T, does it? So he's DTS man, and not just a big fan of digital theatre systems.
Oh, you see, I didn't even think of that. I just thought he's posting AVForums and he's calling himself DTS man. It must be DTS as in sound system. I don't think it's any.
I don't think it is. I think it might just be his initials. Maybe a happy coincidence there.
Okay.
So please enlighten us in the feedback thread,
and
if this comment makes it through the edit.
I'm not sure after this conversation he wants us just to talk. I think you'll want a bit more focus, which is sadly lacking. Yeah, what have you been doing this week, Steve?
Not much, really. I mean, obviously, going out and generally mingling with people was never high on my list of priorities to start with.
You were self-isolating well before it was.
I've been self-isolating for about a decade, so this has just really played into my hands nicely. I just think, I'll just watch the films.
I think all of us on this podcast, maybe with the exception of Kaz, have been practicing this for a while.
Kaz only has because he has to. He's got no option. If he could, he would. If it was an option for you, Kaz, to not go out and just sit at home watching films more than you already do, I should add, you would.
Is that possible?
No, I don't think. I do wonder when you sleep. To be honest,
I wonder how he does the work for his actual proper employer.
Yeah.
Have you got another job?
Yeah, I think the trick is having a job where my hours are from like 8 till midnight. So it gives me some flexibility that within that time.
Is that 8 p.m. till midnight?
Yeah, no, 8 in the morning because we got UK clients and US clients. So you got to be available that entire time. And if the server goes down overnight or if something happens, then it's kind of all hands on deck. So there's a measure of flexibility. And Fridays are my day. Like Fridays when Netflix movies come out. I mean,
they're always shit.
What a treat!
They're so awful. I can do so much at the same time without it really.
The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. You keep watching these Netflix films; they're always shit.
I don't view it like that, though. I view it that I'm saving the public from having to
actually, do you know what? He has got a point because I saw that one with Marky
Confidential.
Mark. Yeah, with Marky Mark, and then I saw it pop up on AV. There's a waste of time. It's like, oh, okay, that's fair enough. So
yeah,
I read the review and took it off my wish list.
I watched Super 8 again.
Not all heroes wear capes, do they, Carl?
No, quite.
I did though watch Altered Carbon, which I've got to say, I'm a bit disappointed to be honest. In the second season,
it wasn't as good as the first season, but I do love the material and the universe.
Yeah, but there's 3 books, right, Kaz? And they've adapted basically 1 and 3.
They've adapted 1 and 3, and they've used a chunk of 2 for
what are they going to do now?
Well, I think the author behind it, Richard Morgan, has said he's interested in going back to the character. Like 20 years later, he's going to go back to the character because Netflix are interested in more. Whether or not it'll actually get a green light for another season is another thing. But
maybe he's faster than George R.R. Martin when it comes to knocking out a novel.
I have to say, I I have reflecting on it. I think Mackie might have been a bit of a weak link.
No, he was, and it was made all the more obvious by the fact that they had the actor who played the original version of Kovac in it as well.
And he was much better.
But also, there was kind of the nudity, shagging, ultra-violence that was in the first season. Which
it always disappears in the next season, because what's the one coming up next week? Westworld's back for season 3. Oh, season 2 was pretty
I don't know. I didn't mind season 2. There's lots of interesting ideas in there.
I'd argue too many just randomly splattered at the screen.
Yeah, I mean, trying to figure out the different time zones was the issue, I think. In season 2, it was easier in season 1 to follow the different time strands. They tried to be, I think, a little bit too clever in season 2 with how many different time zones you were actually covering, or periods in time that you're actually covering. I think they were trying to be too clever with it, and it became a bit of a headache towards the end of it. So much so that I'm trying to find a way of recapping it without having to watch the whole season.
There's one on fandom.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Screen Junkies, they've done a 30-minute recap of season 2, which I watched on Saturday night. I thought, okay, that's handy, because I couldn't be bothered to watch it again. So that came in really handy, because also they did it in chronological order. It's a lot easier to understand what was going on. Although season 3, I don't know, it's called Westworld, but I don't think season 3 takes place in Westworld anymore. Now they're in the real world.
No, I think it's in the real world, isn't it? The future section of the story.
Future world.
Yeah. Right, okay, so that's what Steve's been doing. Kaz has been doing. Ed?
I've had to do some credit card fraud. Pinged through that someone was trying to help themselves to £775 off my credit card. So I'd like to say a big thanks to Halifax, who had an operative I was able to speak to at 11 minutes past midnight this morning, who sounded altogether rather more compass mentis than I was at 11 minutes past midnight this morning. So that was fun.
What are they trying to buy?
I have no idea. This is the thing, unfortunately. It didn't have, sometimes it's very clear where the money's trying to go. This is just a money transfer system. It did, however, allow me I had to then potter through my bank's, credit card statement, and I realised, and this is I'm not seeking sympathy, it's entirely my own fault. I'd not disassociated my credit card from my son's Kindle, and he's managed to spend £58 on apps in the last month. Including,
I think you got off lightly there.
I neither blame him nor feel hard done to. I mean, especially when, let's face it, he did buy Hungry Blue Whale Attack Simulator, and who amongst us would not look at that and think, yes, that's a bit of all right. So yeah, I mean, that's been eventful. I've actually had a very quiet weekend. I haven't done a huge amount. I've been listening to some stuff, preparing to do some writing and so on and so forth. But that's fine. Obviously, I can't drive anywhere because the car's, end of life. So yeah, it's fine. I've built up my stockpile a bit, so I'm going to work out what I do with 6 packs of incredibly high quality Italian dried mushrooms in the fullness of time. And that's broadly it.
Okay, good stuff. Not been doing much myself. I didn't have the car for most of the week. It was away getting its winter decontamination, because it sits in the street and it gets covered off the gritters as the gritter goes past, and that it's something I have to do to keep the guarantee on the coating stuff that's on the car. So it went away for a spa week. It gets more spoiled than I get spoiled. So yeah, it's had a full decontamination, light polish, coatings topped up where they need to be, wheels off, all the rest of it. So it came back on Wednesday looking absolutely brand new. I mean, he did the engine bay and everything, and I've just come back from Scotland tonight, and it's white.
Filthy.
It's white just with the salt off the roads, because it's been a nightmare going up and down to Scotland today. So yeah, it'll need to go back in for a wash before the car season gets underway, which can't happen soon enough.
Yeah, I'd just leave it now until there's some sign of actual spring. I mean, I will have to clean my car imminently, because I'm assuming that the lease company would like to see if it's still blue. But under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be going anywhere near having the car cleaned until halfway through April. It would be brown until that point.
Well, it's sat since November, Ed, and hadn't been washed since November, so it needed a deep clean, and then obviously car season starts beginning the next month So yeah, I'll start the regular regime of cleaning it at the beginning of next month. So hopefully when
I don't have a regular regime of cleaning. So
there you go.
If it's roughly recognisably the colour it was when I took delivery of it, that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
So what you need is a brown car.
Well, as I say, this next one is grey, and I'm hoping that's going to really do quite well at hiding the Ming.
Yeah, so you'll hide it everywhere in a grey car. You just disappear.
Oh no, my favourite! I discovered this that Thames Valley Police has a number of magnetic grey Leon Cupras as unmarked police cars, which means that people treat them with a great deal of circumspection, which I shall be taking full advantage of by dressing anonymously and biffing up and down dual carriageways at 70 miles an hour exactly. So
you'll have to buy Will one of those toy police hats and then put it in the back of the car on the back shelf, just so at a glance it looks like the real thing.
Yeah, well, the possibilities are endless. So yes.
Right, so before we break any more laws, let's go over to cars for the current competitions.
So you can win a copy of Midway on limited edition 4K Steelbook. That closes 25th of March. You can win a copy of Dr. Sleep on Blu-ray. That closes 25th of March. Win a copy of Criterion's February titles on Blu-ray. They close 11th March. And Criterion's March titles on Blu-ray. That closes 3rd of April. You can win Zombieland Double Tap on Blu-ray. That's 17th of March. Come to Daddy on Blu-ray. That's 17th of March. The Good Liar on Blu-ray, 18th of March. And First Love on Blu-ray, which is 19th of March. Lots more competitions open and being added daily, so head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter even more. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK.
And I'd just like to point out that I did have all those in chronological order, and somebody has messed them around.
Me.
Hooray.
Yeah, I just put them in order of the ones I liked, kind of.
Midway has got an awesome soundtrack. Dr. Sleep's a surprisingly good film.
I love Dr. Sleep.
This?
Yeah, I haven't seen Midway, but anyway.
If you're looking at a disc and going, oh well, the film is absolute bobbins, but it sounds and looks all right.
The film's actually okay. I thought.
Yeah.
I went to the cinema and saw it.
Yeah.
I thought.
But the soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think
it
it's like
pretty
watching a
good too.
Transformers sequel.
It is a bit.
So-
Yeah, the effects are very obvious at times.
No, I mean, I don't think it's as unpleasant as watching a Transformers.
Oh no! I mean, nothing is it? Unless it's a Transformers prequel, because Beetlejuice. Then.
True. Beetlejuice was very good.
Beetlejuice, yeah. Bumblebee was brilliant.
I would say that is. I mean, it's a low
really
bar,
good film.
That is clearly the best of the Transformers films.
It's E.T. with a car, or robot, depending on how you look at it. I suppose.
Right. Any previous competition winners?
Yep, loads. Obi-Wan Kenobi won Little Monsters on Blu-ray. Godiva 1107 won Downton Abbey on Blu-ray. JMB 1962 won Judy on Blu-ray. Uncaged Fish won Abominable on Blu-ray. Mackie 234 won Sons of Denmark on Blu-ray. Decky 63 and Cherry Derby won Bliss on Blu-ray. Bitman 666 and PJ Foster won Son of Shake on Blu-ray.
Okay, congratulations to all our winners there, and like Kaz says, there are more competitions, so go and head over to avforums.com/competition if you want to win some stuff, and we'll be back in a sec with some hardware news. So let's kick off with some music stuff for a change, because I had no idea that it was Mini Disc Day yesterday, 7th of March. It was in fact.
Did anyone know that?
I don't know if anybody did know that. I only know because I happened to switch the new Techmoan video from Matt on and watch that, and it was all about Mini Disc. Who's just deleted Mini Disc Day?
Sorry, that was me. There we go.
Technology and members of the AV Forums podcast do not mix. But anyway, I thought it was a good idea, actually. You've got Record Store Day, so why not have Mini Disc Day? Because I think, certainly, the conversations we've had in the past and looking at the comments after we had those conversations on the podcast, there seemed to be a lot of love for Mini Disc as a format. So why not?
Yeah, I think it's very much past tense, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed using it, and until such time as various technological loopholes were closed with, solid state portable players and so on and so forth. They were the best Walkmans going, but even allowing for these releases that they've listed here being done in the last versions of A-Track, which were truly lossless, which then in turn means you need a very small subsection of players that can actually play them. It's not really much of a movement on from people being sentimental about cassette
or vinyl.
No, vinyl's a slightly different one. Insofar as if you throw enough money at the problem, vinyl is capable of some. Well, I mean, really,
what they should be doing here is real day, because if you're talking about quality and audio quality.
Oh no, absolutely. But again, I can't get truly annoyed at reel-to-reel fanatics, because if you are content with the fact that you have an incredibly limited subset of music to choose, the results are genuinely astonishing. And that's not really the case for either cassette or minidisc.
So what you're really looking at here is a bit of a nostalgia thing. It's kind of like the fact that all of us on this podcast have reached a certain point in our lives where we now, some of us, I'm not talking about me, but some of you might have some disposable cash. And the types of disposable cash that you can now spend on stuff that you absolutely lusted after as a teenager or in your 20s or whatever, and you can now afford to have it. And I think there seems to be a big movement in terms of nostalgia and that kind of thing, and I think it's driven by our generation now having disposable cash.
No, definitely. Same with the some of the prices doing the rounds for minty fresh examples of old consoles and so on and so forth. I mean, you could emulate it, but it's not the same thing. You want the hardware to go with it. And yeah, there are any number of bits. I am no different to anyone else in so much as there are things that I couldn't own as a teenager that I would very much like to sort and correct now. But minidisc, again, the other catch is, of course, that these are, they're like CD insofar as, they're complicated bits of kit. They can't really be maintained by people in sheds, which is kind of the killer thing for vintage electronics to have a really burgeoning and thriving culture, because cassette players can, old games consoles to an extent can, and obviously record players can not only be maintained in a shed, they can be built there. But yeah, I'm delighted that it's happening. It's a weird one. I don't completely understand why. Although that may just be, as I've explained the last time we talked about minidisc, I have it left a very sour taste in the mouth when my 500 odd pound Sony blew up for 10p's worth of parts. Yeah. So
that was a shame, but I can only think positively when it comes to minidisc. And I, talking to somebody who nearly dropped 400 quid on a turntable that would never ever get used.
Well, yes, but you'd have always got your 400 quid back.
Yeah, I suppose that is true, but when it actually came to it, and when it came to the actual point of, I need to make a decision now, am I going to buy this turntable, this £400 turntable, just for it to sit as an object in my room? And I went, no, I've got better things to do with that money.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I completely get that. It's the same with me. I always look at those. Going back to the console thing, instead of buying an actual, I would that you see them advertised on Facebook. They have thousands of games built into them. I think they're usually built on like Raspberry Pi platform things. I keep looking at one of those, and I think I don't. I'm still got a television backlog as long as my arm, and there's still records I haven't listened to. The idea of introducing another thing that is vying for my limited amounts of time and attention into the house just seems perverse, basically. So I just leave it.
No, I just thought it was really neat that somebody's gone to the trouble of doing this. And what about you, Steve?
I think it's cool that they are releasing new stuff. I will say that. So without being a downer, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no, it's as a nostalgia trip, it's great. But I guess personally, I loved minidisc in the day, but the world's moved on now, so I can let go of that particular balloon. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for a bit of nostalgia, particularly in this day and age. So fill your boots if that's your thing.
Yeah, good stuff. Some other bits and pieces of news that are going around concerning 8K. This year is going to be dominated by 8K whether we want it to be dominated by 8K or not. The 8K message is definitely going to be coming because the Olympics are going to be done in 8K for the first time. Sky and BT are going to eventually go that way. BT are one step ahead of Sky. They're working with Samsung, funnily enough, to develop the 8K sports broadcast. They did one which was a closed door event. I think it was last week.
It was last week. It was the Arsenal Olympiacos game in the not Champions League, the other one, Europa. No, what's the other one called?
Europa League.
Europa League, yeah. It's the Europa League, yeah.
So anyway, I mean, obviously Samsung are behind this because Samsung are pushing 8K quite a bit.
What was the bandwidth you needed to deliver it? It was pretty chunky, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, it's not something that's going to happen
It's like
overnight.
80 meg or something to deliver it. So yeah, for most people, it's still out of reach.
Yeah.
Even if you did have it available.
The main thing is, though, it's going to happen.
Oh, this year, definitely. You've got phones doing 8K now, recording in 8K, like the new Samsung phones are going to do 8K. You've got the Olympics. You've got people like BT starting to do it in this country. You've got Rakuten, I think, doing some 8K stuff. And technically, I think the games consoles are going to be capable of it, although I suspect you won't actually see it. But
I don't think you'll see it, but theoretically
they could do it. So, again, there's definitely going to be a lot more interest, I think, this year than there has been in previous years.
However, there was a study done, which was really quite a decent study because they actually took a scientific approach and they tried to be fair and balanced in the way that they presented this study. And what they basically found was that, and it's something that I've commented on, and I think you've commented on as well, Steve, that at certain viewing distances, resolution alone is very, very difficult to tell which is which. Very difficult. And that was basically what the study said. Most of the detail went unnoticed between the 4K and 8K resolution TVs that were sitting next to each other, and I get that. I completely get that, because the thing is, if you put 4K SDR next to 1080p SDR, it is difficult to see from a normal viewing distance. It's difficult to see the jump in resolution alone. Let me caveat that. That's resolution alone. Once you add other things in there, like a wider colour gamut and so on, it is far more obvious to see a difference in the image. But certainly in terms of resolution, and I think that's why a lot of distributors of 4K UHD Blu-rays and Hollywood itself, distributing these digital cinema packages to screens that are 30, 40, 50 feet wide, and they're doing it at 2K. There is a reason for that. It's not just resolution at the end of the day. And we've seen it from UHD, Steve, 4K UHD. It might be a 2K DI, but adding in HDR, adding in a grade for that with wider colour and so on, and a little bit of resolution on top of that, because we're not talking about an upscaler in a TV or anything. You're talking about upscaling an image within the studio environment where you have complete control over how that image looks and so on. It's very, very difficult to tell a native 4K Blu-ray from a 4K Blu-ray that's come from a 2K DI.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. That's one of the reasons why HDR exists, is partly because the just increasing from 2K to 4K wasn't going to be enough, really. It wasn't going to be enough of a wow factor, I think, and adding in, plus also, the technology was there to deliver things like a wider color gamut and more dynamic range, so why not do it? But they definitely, that's what makes the biggest difference. So going from 4K to 8K purely in terms of resolution, obviously it depends on a number of things. It depends on the size of the screen. It depends on how far away you're sat. It depends on the person. I know people that can't tell the difference between Full HD and SD, and I find that staggering because it's so obviously different.
Yeah.
But so there are all lots of factors. Other factors, I think, would probably be that the length of the clips they were using seemed quite short, and I think sometimes it might take a bit longer to, be able to adjust the difference in resolution between two scenes. I don't know. I wasn't there. Obviously, it was run by the studios, and it looks like they were using an LG TV. And I think the studios aren't too keen on 8K because they're still doing 2K workflows, and LG aren't too keen on 8K because their 8K OLED costs a bloody fortune.
Yeah. It should be pointed out that anything like this, any TV shootouts or anything like that, even when they try to be completely as unbiased as possible, and we've been in this position as well, and you try and do all the right things, it's very, very difficult doing one event and extrapolating any useful data from that, other than the people who were there at that time, they preferred X, Y, Z compared to A, B, C. And that's what you're talking about with these studies. But they are interesting in terms of, what people's expectations are and what the actual results are and so on. You can get some really useful nuggets of information out of there, I think. And I don't see 8K ever being as fully supported as 4K is. And 4K will never be as fully supported as Blu-ray in terms of the public. I think this technology is going to exist. 8K is going to exist, 4K is going to exist alongside it. I don't see any major big pushes from Hollywood to go 8K. And
Definitely not.
It's going to cost them an absolute fortune to do it, and they just ain't going to do it. I
mean, they're shooting at resolutions of 8K, but they're not finishing the workflow.
No.
So I guess it depends on the film. If it was like a kitchen sink drama, you could shoot it at 8K and release it at 8K because there's no effect. But if you're talking about a Marvel movie where almost every scene involves an effect shot of some form, that just adds so much, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of time. Post-production schedules are pretty tight these days, and a lot of the time it's not so much the money, it's just they haven't got the time to do it at those resolutions. So the one thing I will point out, and I'm sure you can back me off on this, Phil, is that also if you feed an 8K TV a really good quality 4K source, it looks bloody amazing sometimes.
It does, yeah.
I know the TV can't add detail that isn't there. I know that. My head knows that. But you look at some stuff and think, bloody, that does look really good.
Yeah, and you get the same effect if you film something on an 8K camera and then show it on a 4K display. Yeah. The stuff that's been filmed at 8K looks better than stuff filmed at 4K, even though you're displaying it on a 4K.
Like the Spears and Munsell disc.
Yeah.
It was all shot at 8K. It's a 4K disc, but they've shot everything at 8K. They get plenty of headroom, and those images look stunning, don't they? Absolutely stunning. So you look at those images on an 8K TV, and they look. You could easily say to someone that's 8K, and they'd believe you, because it looks really good. So. Same thing as when 4K first came along and you started watching, Blu-rays on a 4K TV. And even now I put a Blu-ray on and think, that looks really good. Yeah. So, the upscaling can be, and upscaling these days is getting incredibly sophisticated. When you're talking about neural networks, we're doing the image enhancing and comparing and analyzing the image for recognizable objects and this sort of stuff. It's, the results can be genuinely impressive. So there's lots of factors here, and obviously we weren't there. So.
I think just looking at the industry, going forward this year, if we do manage to move forward and coronavirus gets out of the way and we can get back to some normality and so on, I think what you're going to see is more fragmented in terms of the technologies being used. But what I see is like sports going over to 8K. I think that seems to be like a natural progression.
Again, no need for special effects.
No need for special effects.
Yeah.
You're going to add a higher frame rate, and you need to add a higher frame rate. 8K, 24 frames per second on a big screen will look absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And that's me who loves 24 frames a second. But the more resolution you got there, the more issues you're going to have with motion and so on. So if you're up in the frame rate, you're using 8K. For sports, it's going to look absolutely spectacular, and it will start to find its little niche areas like that. So, do you need an 8K TV? No, you don't need an 8K TV at the moment. 4K. I don't think you've got a choice now between Full HD and 4K. I think most TVs now.
It's 4K.
It's all 4K panels now. So and you'll see that.
I guess eventually that will happen at the eventually there'll become a time when you buy a TV and it will just be an 8K panel.
Yeah. So it is coming, but I think it'll be a bit more fragmented. We ain't going to see any physical media when it comes to 8K. I think the UHD Alliance have made that pretty clear that it's not doable in terms of managing to fit all that data onto a physical disc or whatever. So that's not going to happen. 4K is going to be the best you get from physical media. But then you've got streaming. And like you say, Steve, upscaling technologies using AI, all that type of thing. There's new codecs like AV1 coming along.
New compression codecs,
that's there already. So you could see this start to be streamed within the same bandwidth that we're using at the minute for 4K and so on.
YouTube uses AV1, doesn't it?
It does,
and
yes.
You can watch 8K on YouTube if you've
Do you know what would be cool, though? Just thinking about this. You could create a physical format for 8K around old NES cartridges, because it's big enough that it could hold a piece of solid state memory that was large enough to do it. So you could go back to having a big piece of plastic that you wanged into the top of a player to make the magic happen, and you could blow on it and it would be all sentimental and everything at the same time. So it would feed back to what we were saying at the beginning of this, where you could feed into your retro technology delights at the same time as having an 8K physical format.
Well, why not have 8K Laserdisc, like a big 12-inch?
I suppose that's a fascinating question. What if you had the production techniques that have gone into UHD Blu-ray, and you had a disc the size of a Laserdisc? What is the capacity? Does anyone know?
How many layers could you get? How much data could you... No idea.
Would you still have to turn it over halfway through?
That's just for nostalgia.
I think that definitely would be a killer. I think people wouldn't get for that.
You could have the auto reverse on it, though. The autos flip,
Oh, what with that ever so seamless? When people used to complain about layer change on DVD.
Go for a cup of tea.
That CLD 925 that I used to have, that was the last Pioneer Laserdisc player I had, and it had all the features on it, and it had the auto flip stuff, and it had the memory buffer as well, so it would change while it was still playing the last segment of the disc because it buffered it into the memory, so it was almost seamless to change. Almost seamless because it made such a bloody racket when it was moving to the other side of the disc. Oh my god! It was a great idea buffering it, but if the player was anywhere close to your viewing room, it was just the noise it was making. Yeah, right. I think that's it for hardware news. Let's move on to some reviews. I think we're going to be quite quick with these because Steve's reviewing another subwoofer, and there's only so much you can say about a subwoofer, Steve.
Actually, Phil, I have reviewed this new sub, and so has Ed. So Ed can also comment on this as well if he likes. This is the Q Acoustics QB12, which is the first sub from Q Acoustics that's what you would call a traditional subwoofer, as opposed to the slimline models they've generally done in the past. This one is a full-size 12-inch cube sub. And I think I definitely, in my review of the 3000i series last year, I think it was last year, no, maybe the year before that, actually, I did comment that the weak link in the system was definitely the sub, and I would like to have seen them do a more...
As we've been commenting on the previous versions as well.
Saying that for a while. And clearly they've been listening and decided, yep. So they brought out the QB12. It's a sealed 12-inch subwoofer, got a 12-inch long throw driver, 220 watts of Class D amplification, and it comes in two different finishes, two different colors. So you can go for the matte black or matte white, which is £499, or you can get the gloss black and gloss white options, which are £649. I've got to say, I would struggle to justify 649 quid. I think that 499 is priced about right for what it is. I think 649 puts it into a different, up against more competent competition. Actually, no, it's 499 has got its own issues because it's up against the BK.
Oh, I was just going to say that's the big one. It's got to compete with, isn't it?
I mean, in Q Acoustics' defense, I will say this: the level of quality that goes into their gloss finishes is demonstrable. It is very clearly a much more expensive thing to apply than the matte finishes. But £150 extra for the same product, as you say, Steve, it is unfortunate. Whether it's done at limited margin or not, it does end up feeling toppy.
It does a bit, which is unusual for Q Acoustics because usually their pricing is very competitive. And also, as a purist in a home cinema, I want a matte black sub anyway. I don't want a glossy one. At $499 though, I think it's competitively priced, and overall I thought it was a good sub. It's reasonably powerful. It's got a claimed frequency response of 28 to 300 hertz, so it's not a bass monster by any stretch of the imagination. It can do 220 watts, peaks up to 440 watts. I'd say it's responsive. It's it partnered, because I did actually have they sent me the 3000 series, the 3010s. I think you had exactly the same system.
Yes.
But I think it was the same system, actually. It came from Richard Sounds, which I think is where you saw it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I did use it with those, plus I used it with my own system, just out of curiosity. It partnered the Q Acoustics speakers extremely well, which you'd expect it to do. It's a well-made capable sub. It's responsive. It goes relatively deep, although if you're someone who really wants, the kind of bass that's going to get your neighbours to take out a restraining order on you, then this isn't the sub for you, and you should be looking at the BK. I do think though that whilst it is a step up from their previous, it's a good enough sub to warrant a recommendation. It's a step up from their previous subs, which I always thought were a bit lacking. However, up against the BK, it's going to struggle because I just think that's a more competent sub all round really. Plus, it delivers deeper bass and it's got more power. And it's cheaper. So
the report card is nice attempt, well put together, could do better.
My gut feeling is that is entirely correct. I would suspect that there's probably going to be a bundle deal or two if you go all in for there'll be a slight group discount for buying a full package. And the integration with Acoustics' own speakers, I did think was genuinely good. It behaved. It's one of those things. It's not a shock and awe product, and I think that is quite deliberate. But its ability to deliver a well-integrated, well-thought-out. I mean, one of the pieces of test sequences I used with it was Baby Driver, which never has particularly large. It's not a brown noise style film, but the bass it's quick and it needs to be like on its feet. And it's not to say the BK can't do that, because of course it can, but there are an awful lot of subwoofers at that price that can't. And it's just ability to deliver a properly mature, filling in the lower octaves performance rather than a explosion fest thing. I think it has virtues, but yeah, it feels competitive, a little, possibly a little high at £500. The gloss ones, unless you desperately need to see your face in it, I don't see the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree. It was nimble and quite elegant in its performance, and it definitely partners the QAQ. I mean, it's obviously the point is they're designing them to be used with their speakers. I don't think they intended it to be, if I want to buy a sub, I think I'll get the Q Acoustics. I think if you want to buy a sub, you're going to be looking at the specialist sub manufacturers, and at that price point, you're looking at a BK. Let's be honest. But if you're looking to buy, if you want a sub to partner your Q Acoustic system, if you're thinking of buying a Q Acoustic system, and like you said, Ed, they'll probably hang on, let me do that again. Like you said, Ed, there'll probably be some package deals. Then it's a good choice. But just on its own as a sub, it will struggle against the BK.
Okay, there we go. Let's move on swiftly. Sticking with audio. I think it's audio, or it's either that or a tumble dryer. I'm not quite sure looking at the product name. What on earth is it, Ed?
The Vertere DG-1. This is a record player, and it answers the question, if Batman owned a record player, what would it look like? It would look like this. This is, believe it or not, at £2,750, the cheapest record player that Vertere makes. It's worth putting that in the context that they make an arm for a record player which costs, depending on the cables that you choose to go with it, around £30,000. So when we say cheap, by Vertere standards, this genuinely is. Now, because of that, they've had to completely look at every single facet of making a record player, because many of the materials and practices they use they can't afford to do. So it's got some very clever things. The arm has no bearings. It has no arm tube. It has some very clever solutions as to how you make a plinth and so on and so forth. We'll be brief because we've done, there is a full review of it, and it's a long one. It's about 3,000 words, which by my standards is fairly hefty. The net result is that it looks different and it feels different to a lot of rivals, but it is a phenomenally good record player. It genuinely is very, very good indeed. And it goes back to a question that's been asked of me a couple of times. It's very hard to get hold of a turntable which doesn't induce coloration in one shape or form. They are inherently colored devices. This is one of the most affordable turntables I've ever tested that really is very, very neutral indeed. And it looks like it could defeat a Soviet radar system while it does it. So, I mean, I think the looks will be very Marmitey. I look forward to the comments on the appearance, because I think some people will love it and other people will go, that's ridiculous. Although everything on there is on there for a reason, bar its ability to light up in the dark. but nevertheless, the performance was genuinely impressive. So I hope you enjoy the review. And then very, very quickly, just at the end of things, I'm saying thank you to the people who have already commented on the article piece that went up of mine today about the post-AV.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to read that yet.
Movement. It really, I'm delighted to see some of the feedback. What's interesting is that as yet, I mean, obviously give it time. We'll wait until Monday crops in, the people reading it on the loo at work get their oar in. No one has violently disagreed with what I've said yet, which I thought was quite interesting. I was assuming that by this stage someone would vehemently disagree. But nevertheless, thank you for your feedback. I welcome more of it. And yeah, I think at the moment we're at the embryonic stage of this, and I say in the piece that we shouldn't expect miracles out of this industry. It's not any better planned than most others, but nevertheless this is a driving force in how companies are going after your money for how you might replace your next AV receiver. Okay,
I'll go and read the comments once we get finished with the podcast, because I've been out all day, so I haven't had a chance to read on that. Right, that's hardware reviews and news out the way. We're back in a sec with some movie stuff. Right, moving on to movie stuff. And let's go to some movie news to start with, because I don't think we have any reviews, do we, Kaz? You haven't been to the cinema, have you?
No, but I did. I love Dr. Sleep enough, so I thought I'd do a little review of the disc for that later. But yes, we should cover Bond first.
No, I meant, have you been to the cinema?
No, who's been to the cinema? No, I haven't been to the cinema. No.
Yeah, I ain't going to the cinema. Well, I had tickets for Bond, as we're about to talk about, but
I don't think is there anything worth going to the cinema for?
No, there isn't. I mean, normally on a Thursday or a Friday, I like to go across to the cinema at the Metro Centre, because it's quiet enough that I could get in, see what I want to see, and then disappear before it gets too busy. And I've been looking, and there's just nothing that's tempting me at the minute. So I think Odeon are going to get another score in March out of me. I should just cancel it and then start it again in the summer when there's stuff that I want to go and see.
If there is stuff not actually stuff to go and see.
Yeah, well,
that's the big question. So let's get on with that particular topic.
So like Bond, No Time to Die, because of a virus. It's been pushed to November 2020. They won't have taken this lightly, because they've already spent a lot of money on promotion. I believe the cast have even been doing the interview rounds and that kind of thing, building up ahead of steam and so on. So they haven't taken this lightly. I think it's the first time it's happened because of an event like this. So I can't recall ever having a film move. It's happened in the past where they've haven't had time to finish the movie or whatever, but I can't remember it for any sort of event like a pandemic or anything like that. I think this is the first time that it's happened, isn't it?
I don't recall anything like it.
I'm not aware of it. I do think there are two potential interpretations of this. One, there's three possibly. The first one is the plot involves a virus. They kind of think, we need to either delay it or reshoot it. But what I have heard rumours of is that it hasn't tested very well. They want to do reshoots, and this gives them an excuse to delay it.
I've heard similar things about
because
that.
Otherwise, delaying it to November could work against them, because if this virus behaves like the 1918 Spanish flu, it initially arrived at the beginning of the year, it peaked a bit in April, went away in the summer, and came back with a vengeance in October and November. So they could well find themselves right back in the same boat in November.
But then it gives them more time to reshoot again.
I'm saying that's only a rumour, but there are because no other film. Although what happens up till now is that clearly Bond would have taken a lot of money in places like China. There's no Chinese cinemas open at the moment. So if you're releasing a film right now, you're going to make sod all in the international market. Yeah. So the next big release...
Surely that's a big reason for it.
Totally.
Because the way I see it is that there's a lot of... I mean, it's having a knock-on effect. If it is just to do with money, so they're going to lose so much money because of China, then it does also induce a degree of panic, because it also says to some people, not everybody, it says to some people, they're not showing Bond because we shouldn't really be going to the cinemas, which may not be the case in Winnersh, but might be the case in China. So I think that it's having a slight panic effect, even though it might be entirely money-driven.
Possibly. I mean, it has definitely had... what I mean is the virus has had a major impact on the global box office for films. So films that would have hoped to have made some money in China, particularly if they would Doolittle, for example, has bombed, and I think Universal were hoping to at least make some of it back in China. That's not going to happen now. Birds of Prey has bombed and is not going to make any money back now. So this was the first big release where you're thinking, how is this going to impact its box office globally? And they've obviously decided it's going to impact it quite a bit, so we better wait. The question is, what happens in May when Black Widow opens and Fast and Furious 9 open? Again, those films are the kind of films that will take half their money out of China and Asia. China is looking at Fast and Furious or Marvel movies. They make their money in the US, the UK, Korea, Japan, and China. So if they don't have three of those 5 markets open to them, then what are they going to do? Because if you're Marvel and you shove it into November, you've got another film coming out in November.
And you've got a TV show coming to Disney+.
Which is tied into all this.
Yeah.
So you've got a very carefully planned release schedule tied in with both Disney Plus and the cinema. But if everyone starts delaying films, what are they going to do? Put out 100 movies in November? At some point,
this leads on to what it then comes down to who has sufficiently little operating reserve cash that they have to do something quite dramatic, like a streaming service release or something, simply to get some money into the system.
But is it that dramatic, though? Because actually it costs money to put movies, advertise them in the cinema, put them in the cinema, and you don't get 100% of the money back. You get less money overseas from the actual ticket sales. So if Netflix is prepared to fork out 100 million in pure profit, and you don't have to spend any money on it, maybe it's not that big of a hit.
Well, we'll see.
Well, certainly be the case for some of the smaller films. I think they'll end up going to streaming services and not releasing. But when you're talking about a $200-300 million feature,
yes, it's a problem.
But not just the cinema. What about the cinemas? They need to make money too, and they can't just go to Netflix and sell it to Netflix or Amazon or whoever, or use Disney or their own streaming services, as a way of getting people to subscribe. So, the cinema chains could really suffer. It's not like business has been great for them of late. So this could have a disastrous impact.
It could be a leveler, just the same as the stock market at the minute has seen a 10% movement recently. This cinemas disappearing or streamlining or having to cope, it could hand it to the streaming services going forward. Or you could see the studios moving to a release schedule where they start putting out the films on disc a lot quicker or even day and date, and going to streaming services day and date to try and get as much money back as fast as they can. And if that starts happening, then once you've sort of let the genie out of the bottle, you don't get it back in again, do you? No, which is what I mean. This could be a leveler. This could be the one that we all know that's coming. At some point down in the future, we're going to have same day date and release on disc and streaming and at the cinema and so on. It's going to happen. It's eventually going to get there. This could speed it up quite significantly, and we could lose some of the chains. Although I think there's only 3 major companies in the UK now that own.
Yeah, there are.
So, it's the smaller ones that are going to
suffer.
Go,
yeah. Well, it's unfortunate, but then equally on a purely pragmatic level, unfortunately, cinemas and theatres represent an ability to put lots of people in the same space as one another for an extended period of time. They're unlike stadia, they're not even open air. So, with the best will in the world, even if the film, even if the labels still want to go for it, it's not outside the realms of possibility that they're high on the list of places that would be given the red light anyway by governments. I
agree with that. Yeah, and a lot of even if they did stay open, and even if people did want to go there, a lot of cinemas make the majority of their money off incidentals like popcorn. No one's going to be buying popcorn.
They make the vast majority of profits for these companies are in the concessions.
So and no one's going to do that. You're gonna come in with your hazmat suit on. So
yeah, and again, though, we're at the risk of overemphasizing this and playing this up, and let's just see how it goes. But there are some real possibilities, and if things do go north pretty quickly, then you could see quite a few interesting things happening, and that could go for our industry as well. We're talking about review samples and that kind of thing. If there's no product coming out, if they can't get components and parts and so on.
The panels are all made in China.
The vast majority are made in China.
Even if they're assembled in Europe, the panels are made in China, so they could have a huge supply chain issue over the next 6 months. So
you're going to see an awful lot of British loudspeaker reviews from all of us, I think is the
Well, I saw people on the threads going like, when you think, my review of the C9, for example, when you think the C9 prices are going to drop, I'm thinking like, they ain't going to drop. If they don't have new product, they're going to keep selling the old product they've still got supplies of, and the prices are going to go up.
Absolutely, yeah. And, it could be the case that manufacturers were pushing to try and have the TVs out before the Euros this year, because
there may not be any Euros.
There might not be any Euros. There's the Olympics as well, which a lot of manufacturers are pushing for their TVs to be. So we could see things just not happening the way they should happen. It might be the end of the year before we see a TV. I don't think it will be, but if it does go, north or south very, very quickly, that could be the case.
Well, if it sounds like we're making it up as we go along, we are, but then so is everyone else. So.
Yeah, no one knows what to expect at the moment.
Where's that toilet roll? Right, so that's film news, and we don't have a film review because none of us are brave enough to go to the cinema.
I'm not going to the cinema this year. I think I'll just watch him at home.
Yeah, it might be a good idea, actually, Steve. Right, so films opening this week if you're brave enough to go to the cinema, Kaz.
Well, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Bloodshot. So this is Vin Diesel's.
No one was going to go and see that anyway.
Well, it's possible, but it does have a fan base, and
Did you say a fan base or a ham base?
Yeah, he's got his Fast and Furious fan base as well. And it's got that heavily marketed, like from the people who brought you Fast and Furious, basically from Vin Diesel. I don't know. I mean, I can't say it was high on my list of priorities. It looked very much like Upgrade.
Are we sacrificing our reviewer to go and see this?
Yeah, I think that Tom is planning on doing it. It's a hell of a film to go out on.
Just remind him there's no hazard pay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we'll see. I'm really surprised that I'd be really surprised if it continued this way. It's just these next couple of films, like it's more things like Top Gun and Tenet. I'd be surprised if they stayed in place. But Bloodshot, if you want to go and see it, or My Spy is definitely a wait for streaming services. Looks fun, Dave Bautista, kindergarten cop style, but I don't think anyone's going to be rushing out to see that with their kids in the cinema.
Okay, thanks for that enthusiasm with the Kaz. Yeah. So that's Bloodshot out 11th of March, My Spy out 13th of March. 4K releases.
Yes, so we've got the Beauty and the Beast remake and the Jungle Book remake coming out in 4K, a little bit behind their US counterparts. I don't think anyone's rushing out for these, but we've also got Midway 4K. Simon reviewed it. He actually gave it a 7, and it's had relatively positive feedback on the forums. I guess you know what to expect watching an Emmerich film, and it sounds like a demo disc as well. Yeah, so that sounds spectacular. That review's already up, and I just reviewed Dr. Sleep, and I have to say that's a contender for one of my favourite late-stage remakes. It's up there for me, at least. It's up there with things like Blade Runner. Sequel. Late-stage sequels. It's up there with Blade Runner 2049. It's up there with Mad Max Fury Road for me. I don't think anything can touch those two at the moment for me. But Dr. Sleep, I hadn't planned on seeing, and for some reason the film times were not right for whatever I'd planned on going to see. I think I was going to see Terminator Dark Fate for a second time. Dark Feet, yeah.
Dark Feet.
Yeah. I was going to see it for
Terminator Smelly Feet.
Second time, and the times weren't right, so I ended up going, I'll see Dr. Sleep. Loved it. Fantastic soundtrack, which is almost entirely composed of a slow heartbeat plus motifs from the first film. Some really nice integrated ideas, visual ideas from the first film, and an interesting universe building going on. I really enjoyed it. I love the characters.
Have you watched both versions?
I've watched both versions.
Yeah.
I
prefer the longer version myself.
the longer version is better. It's a 3-hour, epic, and it's much more considered. It has time for these characters. I mean, the 2.5-hour version takes its time, which is good, but the longer version is better. The gutting thing about it is they don't stick it on 4K.
No.
And I have to say, a part of me thinks that kind of, with the Atmos track on the director's cut on Blu-ray, part of me thinks people shouldn't be buying the 4K disc. I mean, I appreciate that we're kind of visual connoisseurs here, but my go-to disc would be to watch the director's cut. I would encourage people to watch the director's cut. So what am I doing with the theatrical cut? Is it a demo disc? So it's a tough call. I don't understand why they didn't release it in 4K. Apparently it's out in 4K on Apple streaming.
Yeah, you can stream it in 4K.
So why can't you have the disc?
Probably a deal. It was probably an exclusive deal that they've signed up to.
It's a rough deal for fans, because it's not even that it's like I put in the review, it's not like it's a Fast and Furious director's cut, which is 3 minutes of additional punches.
It's a very different experience.
It's an extra half an hour. I mean, they're entirely new
scenes. It's got chapter
scenes.
Headings, and it feels more like a novel or the novel. Well, I'll tell you what it does do, which is amazing. It manages the incredibly difficult task of being a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
And the book.
And an adaptation of the book, which is a sequel to the book, which is very different from the film, because King obviously hates Kubrick's film. But this manages to do both. It's an adaptation of the book, and a faithful adaptation of the book, but at the same time it respects, it's in the same universe, if you like, of the original film.
So many visual cues.
Yeah.
It uses
plus also in the end of the book, the hotel's blown up, but in the end of the movie, the hotel's still standing. So in the book Doctor Sleep, the hotel's burned down. In this version, the hotel's still there, which I think is great because it gives them more to play with in terms of visuals. But also they did the intelligent thing. They have other actors playing the characters, The Shining. Yeah. They don't try and de-age Jack Nicholson or use CG or anything stupid like that. And I think, thank God, just get a decent actor to play. I mean, the woman who does Shelley Duvall plays Shelley Duvall's part.
Really good. Yeah.
She's spot on. The kid's really good, and even it's Henry Thomas, who's E.T. Elliot in E.T. He's a passable Nicholson. He's got the same kind of eyebrows, and I was amazed at how much I enjoyed it. I was like you, Kaz. I was like, is it going to be any good? I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was really, really good.
Right, okay, and Midway and Doctor Sleep are out on Blu-ray as well. TV and streaming releases, I was jumping ahead of myself when I mentioned Westworld earlier on. That's next week. What's this week, Kaz?
We got Kingdom Season 2, so that's the Korean zombie drama. It's actually really good. I mean, there's so much zombie stuff out there that I personally don't bother keeping up with it anymore. I'm nowhere near the end of Walking Dead, and there's Black Friday, and there's a bunch of different zombie things, but this one's a period zombie TV series and actually adds a different dimension to it. So it was a pleasant surprise last year, season 1, and quick turnaround for season 2. I think it's less than a year since the first one came out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, good stuff. Just a couple for car lovers like Ed and myself. Tim and Fuzz are back on Thursday for a new series, 12th of March, my birthday, by the way. So that's back. And I always like Fuzz and Tim. I don't know about you, Ed, but religious viewing for me, that. And Wheel of Dealers is also a new series on Monday nights on Discovery.
Phil, is that Car SOS, is that Nat Geo or Channel 4?
Nat Geo. Right,
fine, okay. And I still haven't worked out, has anyone actually got the absolute confirmation? I signed up for Disney, because, why not? Has anyone got, is there actual confirmation there is Air Crash Investigation has made it to the UK thing? Because it's a bit ambiguous.
Is Nat Geo on there, is it? All right, well, it should be. If it's on there, then it should be.
Well, no, there are Nat Geo programs on there, but it's very unclear as to whether they've gone for that as one of the items. They haven't just dropped the back catalogue on there, or at least not initially. I mean, I'm not bothered. I'm going to watch the first 5 seasons of The Simpsons. That's the first priority, and then I'll have a look at some of the other bits after that point. But it would be nice if some of those had made it, but it seems unclear at this point as to whether it has or not.
I think it's going to be wait and see. I think it's just going to be paid for it anyway, so If it's there, it's there. Great.
Yeah, I have to say, Apple TVs. I mean, I've got a free year Apple TV because I bought the Folio for my iPad Pro. I can't see myself renewing that. As it stands.
I really enjoyed the first episode of Amazing Stories. I thought that was pretty good.
All right. Well, I'll have another look.
What do you think of it, Kaz?
I thought it was enjoyable. In
a nostalgically pleasing.
Yeah, I think I would have really liked it if they'd have released more than one episode.
They do it one a week. That's their.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but they've also been pretty good at releasing the first 3 and then doing one a week. I think
was just when it launched. I was just trying to get you on board.
Well, I mean, if they want to get you on board with a new TV show,
I don't mind waiting once a week for a good episode. What I enjoyed is it's episodic. It's just the one episode. Each story is different.
Yes,
I'm getting a little bit sick of these sort of. I'm quite enjoying episodes which are self-contained.
Yeah.
Well, that's why going back to Monster of the Week episodes on X-Files on Amazon is so profoundly satisfying because they're self-contained.
Yeah,
I've got to say, I think Picard's rubbish.
It's getting that way.
The conclusion it's crap.
It's getting that way now. Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I watched it last night and I thought, okay, it's probably going worse than I thought it was going to go.
It's pants, isn't it? It really is pants.
Which is a shame. But it's a shame because they could do so much with the characters that they have. But it's pretty obvious that the people writing the show don't know anything about the history of what's going or care. And it's starting to grate a little bit.
But it's not even if it's a well-written show with a good plot. I mean, the thing is, you could. I don't really care if they ignore Star Trek history because I don't know any of it myself. But the plot's crap. It's just you could get a truck through some of the plot holes in that series. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You kind of think, where are we going? It just ambles along. It's 7 episodes in. You could have done most of this in about 3 hours, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Seemed to spend a long time getting nowhere.
Whereas yesterday I spent 4 hours. I watched 4 episodes back to back. It was actually Forged in Fire Day on History yesterday. The whole day. I only managed 4 hours, but I put 4 hours in and binged it. And I've got to say, it's just one of those programs that it gets under your skin and you're hooked.
And before you know it, you're yelling at people, going, "No, that's not going to work." It's like having never picked up a single smithing tool. You go, "No, that's never going to work, mate." It gives you the armchair expert feeling in a way that very few programs are as good at that. I mean, the only thing that I keep thinking is that studio must be the most unpleasant place on earth.
The smell
with those 4 furnaces running in a well, I'm assuming it's ventilated, but nevertheless, it's got to be. If your deodorant isn't up to snuff, you're going to know about that pretty quickly.
I binged The Trip in Greece this morning, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's like comfortable pair of slippers. Same as the other 3 series, but I like watching Bryden and Coogan doing impressions. And I know you're not a fan, Ed, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I watched Team America World Police this morning.
Oh, classic.
16 years old now.
Bloody hell, is
scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the best montage sequences ever.
But just the song. I mean, Trey Parker and Matt Stone have written some of the best songs.
Yeah, I know.
They are genuine musical geniuses.
Well, I mean, South Park the movie is the one for
the movie is a really good musical.
One of the greatest musicals of the last 30 years. Yeah, definitely.
No, I'd agree with that.
But no, I was disappointed. Of course, I'd forgotten that the UK release cuts the
sex scenes.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought our sequence was full.
No, we don't have the sequence with the Cleveland steamer, so I was disappointed that was missing.
Well, how did they get away with it?
Anyone does. That was cut from the film.
No, it's in the American. The American DVD release had it.
Oh, was that like the unrated?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And
puppets.
Well, yes, I know. It's still not. I guess it's still not a wholesome thing. And it always amazes me just how much vomit they get out of them as well.
Yeah, but again, they create some pop culture there as well with "I'm So Ronry," and
unfortunately, Phil, you'll need to have this is a bleep machine moment. I stand to be corrected on this, but I'm pretty sure it's also the first time that the now surprisingly ubiquitous Jesus fucking Christ made an appearance as well.
I think they should do a Team America too, because with the current president, they'd have a field day, wouldn't they?
I don't know if anyone's prepared to drop $30 million on another marionette movie. Well, no, but needless to say, I enjoyed that very much this morning. I'm behind on Picard because I've lost impetus on that. Still loving MasterChef.
Yeah, that's good. I always love it when someone who's cocky goes out in the first round.
Yeah. No, look, come on, we all love that. Bit of Schadenfreude. But then, nevertheless, the standard. I mean,
the guy with the beard on Thursday, Friday night's episode, he's an early contender.
Absolutely. But did you see, well, obviously when the previous, finalists were doing, and they were honest enough to admit we weren't at this level at this stage. And I thought that was very telling and very honest because the standards have gone bananas over the last 2 or 3 years. So, but no, still great telly. So yeah, all good.
They've recently released that other War of the Worlds.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Seen that?
It's getting some really interesting reviews, I've got to say.
Do you think it's benefiting from the halo effect of coming after the BBC one?
Terrible BBC.
Absolute bobbins.
I think because it's contemporary as well, it's actually set in our time period. I think it's certainly from people who I've spoken to who have seen it, the first episode anyway, that they've been giving it some praise, whereas they absolutely detested the BBC adaptation.
I watched the BBC one all the way to the bitter end.
I did as well, yeah.
I hadn't bothered.
Yeah, no, I'd made that mistake as well. Although with Dracula, the first two were okay, and then the third one was just rubbish.
I think
Stephen Moffat, though, isn't he? He's always like that. He's always full of good ideas, but he doesn't know how to finish it off.
Yeah.
He's the J.J. Abrams of the
can't do a third act. Yeah.
I watched the first 2 episodes of the new War of the Worlds, and I think it's enjoyable, but it's still very, very lazy writing. Like in terms of characters, they're still really irritating. It does benefit from being contemporary. It's a good kind of selling point. I mean, it's almost topical in this post-apocalyptic kind of feel to it. And everyone likes a good show like that. The trouble is that the characters still do really irritating things and are written very badly. And you have to wonder who comes up with that and who goes, yeah, it'd be a good idea to have this one do this because that would make so much sense. And there are too many of those in these kind of programs. You kind of miss clever writing. I mean, taking it back to Dr. Sleep, the girl in Dr. Sleep could have easily been another young child victim. But actually, part of the nice thing about Dr. Sleep is that she's completely atypical for that role. And what more shows need to do is that. So rather than having this War of the Worlds has got the angsty teen who doesn't want to listen to his mum, even though the apocalypse has hit and everybody's dead apart from a few people, and he's literally sitting on the ground and refusing to get up and go anywhere. I mean, it's so annoying. It takes you back to you want to put a bullet in his head and save mankind from that kind of gene. But it is the lazy writing on that. Like, we don't need the backstories that are all very soap drama. We're more interested in this alien race that's come down to wipe out everybody. But they don't seem content with telling that story. They need to give everybody a really bad backstory.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and give it a try. Because I'm interested now that I've heard other people's opinions and your opinion.
How many episodes is it?
Well, there's only 2 up at the moment, and it is better than the BBC one. So
it's not a 2-parter though, is it? It's
no, they've only released the first 2 episodes. I think it's 8 episodes.
Is this on Now TV?
Yeah, it's on Now TV. The only bad thing I've heard is that, and I don't know whether it's true because I haven't got there, is that it doesn't end conclusively, and no one's greenlit another season. So that's the only thing I'm putting out there, is that it's a bit irritating when they do that.
Well, I just want to finish this part on... it's a film we discussed quite a bit last year, and was it coming out in IMAX? Did we manage to get to see it, and so on? And I've only now managed to get to see it. I watched it on the projector last night. It's on Netflix. It's Apollo 11. My God, that looks absolutely stunning. I know you kept banging on about it, Steve, but
I did.
I have got to say,
we didn't believe you.
my jaw was on the floor.
Is it 4K on Netflix?
No, I think it's HD.
Yeah.
It was HD, but I watched it on the projector on a big screen. It's a 2:40 ratio. And I've got to say, there's some shots in there, and it's mainly shots of the crowds gathering and that kind of thing.
They shot on 65mm.
Yeah.
Sitting in canisters since 1969.
It looks like it was filmed yesterday.
Yeah.
And you can see the texture on the clothing and hairstyles and the vehicles, and it was like stepping back in time, stepping back to the 60s, 69.
I love the sequence when they turn on the 16mm camera on the Eagle, and you get the entire landing in real time with a graphic showing you where they are and everything, and that's incredibly tense. Even though you know that they land quite successfully, it's still unbelievably tense.
And you've got the fuel clock running as well, and all that.
They've got like 10 seconds of fuel left when they land, or 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it was 33 seconds I landed on. But it was getting close. It's so if you've got Netflix, you've got a big screen, go watch it. It looks fantastic. Great soundtrack as well. Sounds really good as well. So, thumbs up from me.
I'll probably just watch it with on mute with Public Service Broadcasting's Race for Space.
It's a brilliant album.
Yeah, I know.
Brilliant album.
But that's another thing that was really impressive with the sound design on this. Mm-hmm. And the way that they use the radio calls and they sync it up with some of the footage as well.
With the images. So it's the first time it's ever been done. Someone basically spent years of their life syncing the actual filmed footage and everything from that mission control with the actual Capcom communications. And it just puts you there. It's like being there. It's an amazing documentary.
It's like it happened yesterday.
There's no talking heads either. It's just all footage. It's just, this is how we got to the moon. Yeah, basically.
And there's the bit they do as well, Steve, where they show you the TV signal, so the TV picture that people were seeing back home, as well as the still of what it actually looked like, high resolution still. And there's so much detail missing from obviously back then. The
TV was like
you're talking
40 lines or something.
Yeah, which is great. And you see how much detail in the photographs and that kind of thing. And there's a few photographs showing it as well. And it's
there's a couple of shots where because I knew this mainly from having watched First Man before it, but Armstrong was tethered to the lander as he goes down the ladder, because they weren't sure how deep the dust was on the moon, or what would happen when he set foot. So he was tethered so he could always get back in again. And of course you can't see that tether on the footage and the TV footage because it's so low resolution. But obviously the photographs and the shots on the 16mm camera up in the lander with Aldrin, you can see the tether and everything like that. So there's details that I've never been aware of or noticed before. It's well worth. Since it's on Netflix, it's well worth an hour and a half of your time.
Yeah, and it's a good tight 92 minutes, which is rare these days.
No, perilously, tragically rare.
That's how I choose films now.
That's why I watched Team America this morning, because it's like, that clocks in at under 90 minutes. Let's have a revisit of that. I watched Super 8 last night. Admittedly, that was sort of curtailed by realising that was credit card fraud going on, so I wasn't giving that my full. But again, I'd forgotten that actually that's quite a short film. Yeah, and I think it's all the better for it.
Yeah. And I think
plane crash sequence is always handy for testing subs.
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, so that's it for this week. We've run out of time yet again talking about lots of nonsense.
Toilet paper.
We haven't gone out of yet.
Yeah. Well, I might have by the time this goes out tomorrow. I think I need to take a run down to Spa.
Not a euphemism.
And on that, bog roll. That's it. Bombshell, bog roll. That's it for this week. My thanks to Ed Selley.
Finger it.
Kaz Harlow.
Nobody puts me under arrest. Nobody.
And Steve Withers.
I hate them willies.
Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and video. Plus, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, head over and check out our YouTube channel for videos on the latest product launches and reviews. And feel free to subscribe while you're there. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.